Ladies and gentlemen, let's move on quickly towards the last set of panel discussion, and we are going to have a discussion on the need for a smart meter operation center for large smart metering deployments. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Umashankar Gantayat, energy consultant, as the moderator. He is a senior director serving clients in power, infrastructure, and government policy domains with 20 years of advisory experience in the power sector. He led leadership and global positions at PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte, Accenture, etc. Has significant experience in projects by IFIs like the World Bank, ADB, and DFID. Our first panelist, we have Mr. Sudipta Saha, Practice Lead, Plant Engineering and Operations, Accenture. Mr. Rajeev Kumar, MD, Cyanconnode, and Mr. Ajay Sharma, Energy Expert. Mr. Umashankar. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. Yes, we can hear you. Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Mr. Umashankar, are you ready? Mr. Ajay Sharma? Hello.
Yeah, hello, good afternoon.
Hi, sir. Hi, good afternoon. I think there is an issue with Mr. Umashankar. So, sir, a small request, Mr. Sudipta Saha, can you please continue till Mr. Umashankar joins us?
Sure, I'll do that. Good afternoon, everyone. I think just trying to act as a moderator, though I'm not. But until Mr. Umashankar joins, maybe I'll try to kind of organize this. So let me quickly introduce myself, and I will request my other panelist, co-panelists also to do the same. So just way of introduction, my name is Sudipta Saha. I am from Accenture. I've been here for last close to 11 years, and prior to that, close to 20 years. Experience a total about 30 years of industry experience. So I lead what we call as plant engineering operations, which covers the asset-intensive industry, resources industry, includes utilities and power. And I've been working specifically for a lot of DISCOM clients in the areas of smart grid and a lot of advanced utilities and metering systems. So I'll be happy to share some of those experiences during this call today. So I would request Mr. Ajay, if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. I started this smart meter program in ESL in 2017. Prior to that, I was in power sector, working for hydropower sector and gas-based CCPP sector in NTPC and BHEL. Since 2017, we tried to build this program for a large-scale rollout, and accordingly, we drafted the specification for the entire program and managed the bid management and contract management for this kind of large-scale program. Then this entire program was shifted to a JV, which was formed to take up this program at new height by infusing, I would say, platform level solutions and making the operations more efficient by providing suitable implementing models. I moved out from there as things were not in that direction. So now I'm working as an energy expert, as your team has suggested the name, and very soon I'll be joining this journey again somewhere in the industry or PSU. Thank you. Mr. Saha, you are not audible.
Ajay, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. I was on mute. I was speaking. I was just telling that, until Mr. Umashankar joins, maybe I'll request the next panelist to introduce yourself. I think Mr. Umashankar has joined.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, sincere apologies. First, I'd like to check if I'm audible again.
Yes, you are.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the quick confirmation. Thank you, Mr. Saha, for doing your bit. And one couldn't have expected a better moderator, although you filled in here. My name is Umashankar Gantayat. Extreme apologies again that you can't see me on video, which I would have wanted to see everyone to interact face to face. I have been working in the power sector across different domains for the last 22 years. I started work in PricewaterhouseCoopers, where we were the first group of people in power sector reforms. And of course, a few other introductions that the MC has kindly done before. I'm very pleased to be moderating this session, which is extremely timely. From the large area of work in the utilities and with distribution sector, which is happening now, and with the smart meter rollout programs, also in the context of similar programs globally. This is a very, very timely topic to be discussed. Not just smart meters alone, but how do we operationalize them? Smart meters operation center. Extremely happy with to be moderating here with the panelists present here. Mr. Saha, as you know, is well known across the integrator community. Mr. Rajeev Kumar, Mr. Ajay Sharma are people who absolutely have don't need any introduction to the panel, to the people here. So I'm very happy to be moderating this session today. Briefly, we all know that the smart meters program in India had been initiated for about 5 or 6 years now. National Smart Grid Mission, of course, 2015. Which laid down the framework for rolling it out, all throughout with the establishment of EESL, another pioneering company, which for South Asia and Asia, or for the developing world, is truly one of the world-class, not just companies, but firms which have taken it forward. Quickly coming back to the utility sector to set the context for smart meters and SMOC. We have a huge program now in the country where the intention is to install a smart meter across all consumers. Very timely, because we are also on the cusp of an energy revolution, which relates not just to power consumption, but power management and efficient power management and interaction with other systems like electric vehicles, like rooftop solar and similar such programs. However, there is also a system part of it which deals with communication, metering protocols, and several such engineering challenges and integration issues. So with that as the topic, I think it would be nice to discuss the smart meter operating center as a phenomenal leapfrog in the industry, which goes beyond the billing and commercial related activities of consumers. It goes way beyond into introducing large scale efficiencies in the system. I think I would attempt to hence discuss the subject from the perspective of OEMs, also from the perspective of system integrators, also from the perspective of utilities because they are the ultimate users, and of course the communication specialists and the policy layers. So those would be the various layers that I was hoping to discuss today. Let us start with the OEMs, which is the smart metering community, and by extension, an integral part of the smart meters operation center. Present here, of course.
Mr. Gantayat, just to quickly update you, two of our panelists, Mr. Rajeev, Kumar from Cyanconnode, couldn't join because of the technical issues he's going through at the place where he's in right now. And Ravinder had an emergency to complete. So we have Mr. Sudipta Saha and Mr. Ajay as the panelist here.
So that's absolutely fine. With the presence of Mr. Ajay Sharma, who's done a sterling job in ESL in terms of rollout, but he could take in some of the issues that could be related with number one, utilities. Let us start with from that perspective. Just to lay the context for SMOC, we are not discussing smart meters alone, but a layer of smart meter management, smart meter data management, and unleashing the functionalities of smart meters all throughout the grid. So, Mr. Kumar, what are the typical issues of utilities with all the programs that you might have seen, Uday, IPDS, RAPDRP A and B, and now the RDSS programs, which have a huge focus on smart meters, and with your experience in rolling it out across several utilities? I'm told that about the national portal shows about 20 lakh installation as of now. What are your experience from the utility perspective? And most importantly, how far are the utilities there in realizing the benefits of smart meters? Mr. Sharma, Mr. Ajay Sharma.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Umashankar. So I would say that the smart metering operation center as such is the right concept at the right time. And this particular center would not only monitors the deployment, but would also unleash the benefits acquired from the advanced data analytics, which would be deployed during future implementation. As in initial stage, the focus was more on loss reduction and how we can improve the billing efficiency and all. But now, since all these things we have already witnessed that the benefits are coming and these are measurable, now the focus has shifted to large extent on energy management. When I say energy management, it would include your all kind of energy audits, all kind of DSM, all kind of your peer-to-peer supply management programs, which would be coming in future. Then your renewable integration, I would say in the domestic or to some extent commercial consumers. So all these things is going to happen, and to monitor all such activities at a central level on a large scale, you definitely need a command center. And that command center would enable you to basically see all kind of analytics in terms of your deployment strategy and in terms of your implementation and operational benefits. So how it is going to happen? Because nobody is thinking in that direction. All the utilities have already installed the smart meters, and to start with, we started this program in 2017. And in UP and Haryana, the focus was mostly on they the areas which are more stabilizing the installations, gaining a particular rate of installation per day, and bringing the IT system to a stable level. Which I hope after installation of 2 million meters, we have reached to some extent. It is, I would say.
Mr. Sharma, we are having a little problem with the transmission.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we had a little trouble. But let me use this opportunity to also ask you or seek from you your perspectives about, are the utilities really deriving the maximum benefits out of the smart meter rollout? Are they being able to use the functionalities? Number one. And number two, how does this smart meter operation center or data center, how does it work along with the ERP or the smart grid data centers that we have?
Yeah, so I will answer the first question first. In terms of the functionalities, definitely the utilities now are poised to reap the benefits. In terms of the billing SLAs and all, they are gaining the benefits. They are managing their disconnections also remotely. So that is also boosting their revenues. So that kind of benefit they are now achieving, I would say. Now that has been in practice since last 1.5 years, that they are now seeing these benefits on a large scale. So that's the.
Can you give us? Right? You've come to a very interesting point, which many people would want to listen more about. Can you give us one example where a utility has practically been using it to the best possible in India amongst all the implementation programs that you have had? One example of it, yes.
Right. So there, I will give you 2 examples actually. In fact, these 2 are different models. So in Bihar, we have implemented the program in smart prepayment mode, and installation of a meter within consumer is not paying or is defaulting, so after following a due process which is there in place, connection would start. And we have seen the disconnections in the tune of 1,000, 2,000, up to 5,000 meters a day in a family of around 2 to 3 lakh meters. Now it has increased to around 6 lakh meters, and people get more acquainted to this kind of system, and now they are used to pay all their dues in time. So the connection, disconnection, I would say the percentage in terms of whatever we have installed and whatever were the disconnections, that is getting reduced. So this is a very big factor. If you see the state like Bihar, they are now accepting this particular phenomena, and this is a big thing. We can replicate it in other states also. So that is for Bihar. In UP also, Although the installation and all the applications were in postpaid manner, but they 1.5 years back they started the disconnections of consumers, and they do it systematically. They provide all the details to I would say AMISP, in this case ES, and they start the disconnections automatically from their system. So that is also a problem or communication problem after paying if there are issues in the field. So these things are happening in UP and Bihar successfully. So that is a big thing. And if it can be done in states like UP and Bihar, definitely other states can be replicated on the same model. Right?
So
I think I have answered this question, right?
Yes, I think that's a very, very interesting and welcome development. The question is how better can we use that data for a number of other grid-related functions, a number of other asset-related functions. So we will come back to you more on this. When I come back to you, I would of course want a little bit of your perspective on the OEM and the policy side of it, but that now I would like to shift to Mr. Saha to get a very, very technical perspective. Of course, his experiences allow him to give a lot more, but purely from a system integrator perspective, taking into consideration the challenges of communication, as well as the experiences that we have had in India on smart grid missions and the data centers and the ERP implementations in utilities. How do you think would all of these work out and interact with each other? Wouldn't the architecture be very complex to handle? That's question number one. And if you can possibly bring out some examples or if of experiences in national grid and international experiences where you really have statutory data centers, because privacy is also an important aspect there. How does all of it interact? How does the ERP, smart grid, smart meter, data center, AMI, MDMS, how do all of them, and of course both in site servers and the cloud? I mean, yes, for those of us practitioners, we do it, but from the user perspective, what are the complexities? What are the challenges? What are your recommendations? So let's take that as a first one.
Sure, Mr. Gantayat. I think this is an extremely. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So thanks, Mr. Gantayat. I think this is an extremely relevant and timely question. Now, I just wanted to start saying that the scope of the smart metering implementation goes far beyond, a simple device or IoT implementation, right?
That's right.
This covers, end-to-end implementation that spans across planning, design, architecting, development, configuration, deployment, and testing. So just like any other large system implementation. So undoubtedly, a system integrator plays the role of an anchor in the whole process, right? Now, two major aspects I would like to talk about when it comes to the system integrator's role, right? One is bringing all the stakeholders and the systems on an integrated platform. Now, who are the stakeholders, right? We have as you already mentioned, smart meter device OEMs are there. Then we have the network operators, the billing service provider. You will have a lot of control system, which is sometimes in-home, and then net metering system, your PVs, the plugged-in vehicles, which are kind of that whole infrastructure. And of course, the smart grid operators, right? So now bringing them on an integrated platform is one of the major role of a system integrator. Now, if you think now from the other aspect that how we can ensure an end-to-end and seamless system service provision. Now that service provision should finally aim at a streamlined operation among all those stakeholders that I mentioned, right? But that is where many a time, a kind of the whole SMOC concept, which is, I would say, a kind of variant of our cloud-based service management system, right? Which can actually provide much value-added service than a standalone system. Like if you consider all of this separately, right? So that the whole integrated system can provide a kind of end-to-end service. Now, what are the key services? Metering service is one. All the data management service is another. Obviously, data management will also lead to a lot of analytics and insight into the system so that you can take the right decisions. Your billing service, of course, the communication network service, and the most importantly, the energy management service, which Mr. Ajay also talked about. So all of this service in an end-to-end manner, when you have to provide, the system integrator can play the role of kind of an integrated service provider who will actually create the platform and also help to provide those services.
Right.
That's my point of view.
That's in a nutshell. Yes. Are there any other industries, continuing in the same line of discussion, are there any other industries where we see such complexities in the entire value chain between delivery of electricity and data acquisition, which in this case is the meter data, and its interaction and its final analytics, processing, etc., management, etc.? Are there any other industries where you see such value chain complexities?
Definitely. So first of all, I mean this question is extremely good question because I am part of a group in Accenture called Cloud First and Industry X. Now we actually provide the next generation services to many industries. So it's essentially an horizontal service line which cuts across different industries, and we very purposefully we didn't want to align to a particular industry because we always try to reap the benefit of one industry into another, or use the best practice from one industry in another. Now the whole concept of this smart grid operations or smart meter operations center is nothing different from what we are trying to do in our lot of advanced analytics that we are providing and in the asset intensive industry. For example, I will give an example of telecom operation, for example. Now we are talking about utilities and electricity. If you see the other side is the telecom operators, right? That is another industry which is also having the same kind of a lot of commonality in terms of not only the distribution part of it, but also the billing system and how you use basically the distributed system, and in a centralized way, sometimes you can actually kind of use the same infrastructure by different operators, right? So there are a lot of commonalities. In fact, a lot of other aspects like the geospatial systems that can be used for kind of monitoring the assets, etc., are very, very common. So to answer your question, yes, quite a few other industry, as I just stated one, but there are many other. For example, water utilities, gas utilities, right? So these are all the industries which has a lot of commonalities which can be definitely leveraged, in a SMOC kind of construct.
And there are several use cases in your view from across the world which can be successfully brought in here.
Definitely. So I'll tell you one important thing that when we are talking about creating a general infrastructure or a service-oriented architecture, I mean we look at normally the common use cases, right? Whatever is common in a particular utility company, we look at that. But then when you implement this for a particular discom or utilities, then there are a lot of use case, a lot of customer-specific use cases come into picture. Now that can be implemented through some of the point-to-point integration of interfaces. While your service-oriented architecture provide the overall backbone of the whole infrastructure, whole integration architecture, how all the stakeholders can be integrated to that system, but then those specific use cases can be kind of catered to through those point-to-point interfaces. So those are very specific customer-specific use cases.
Okay, I get it. So summaries for every customer, there is a specific use case, specificity to a customer, to an utility, and to possibly a category of customer. For a small industry, it could be a different specificity as compared to a domestic or maybe even an agricultural customer.
Very true.
Which brings me to a question that you briefly touched upon, and I would want you to slightly throw light on that to expand this discussion that we're having now. That is smart meter data center. I mean, should it be utility specific, or should it be something that spreads across gas, water? You never know. Maybe telecom at some stage, or some communication mode, electric vehicles, and other public utility services. So what are your views on that? Should a DISCOM have its own smart meter data center, or should it be another engine or another vehicle across industries?
No, absolutely. See, there are a lot of things, as I said, that are commonalities, and most importantly, the infrastructure part, right? Obviously, there is a huge investment associated with any infrastructure setup for any kind of operation center, right? Whether it is network, whether it is all your hardware, all the servers, everything, your data center. So obviously, your attempt should be maximize that investment. And now, from a utilities perspective, if the DISCOM is already in multiple business, right? So it obviously makes all the, this makes absolute sense for him to kind of integrate, right? But then I will tell you, a lot of times we also see that, and third party coming into picture and providing all the data center, and basically they're almost like, I will not say 100% public cloud, but maybe dedicated private cloud for multiple sub-utilities, right? So in that case, they can definitely think of, how they can combine the infrastructure in a more secure manner. Of course, the cyber security and other things are very, very quite important in these cases, right? But ultimately, it is essential to kind of leverage the investment that you have made for multiple reasons. So yeah, it makes absolute sense that you can utilize that for other kind of utilities as well.
And we are seeing such cases even here in India. For example, recently in one of the utilities, on a pilot basis, of course, the smart meter installation was being piloted by the smart city working group. Okay, unlike most of the cases that Mr. Sharma brought to light, this was being done, and obviously the data center here sits with the smart city. So how do all of these things interact is going to be, I think we are going to see a lot of evolution in this area, more from that. But I would, before I go back to Mr. Sharma for several other questions, which will touch upon policy and of course the utility side of it. For the moment, I would like to close with you with a question of how good do you find alignment between OEMs? I mean, you are the critical link, as you rightly elaborated, between OEMs and utilities. What is the maturity model of both the OEMs as well as the utilities for these? And please bear in mind that we are discussing operation center, not meter alone, smart meters operation center. So what is the maturity of all of them to participate in this data center, or smart meter data center, or smart meter operation center?
So I think the simple answer is, it is, I will not say that it has reached the steady state, the whole concept of SMOC. There is a lot of new things we have to do. But if you look at country to country, right? So this is the maturity obviously is different in different countries. So if you look at, for example, the Europe, particularly UK, where UK and other countries, yes, Western Europe, a lot of advancement has happened. You know how much investment the US has done, US government, through the SDIG initiative, right? So all of that is definitely helping to build a whole infrastructure for SMOC and the AMI complete infrastructure to a different level. But now for a country like India, I think we have a huge opportunity here, right? Our ecosystem actually is very, very kind of, I would say, conducive to have more investment because we have a lot of renewable sources, as you know. So our supply demand variation, our prosumer base is very high. So we definitely have an opportunity to kind of, tap those, opportunities and make this integrated system. The other important thing is that with prosumers coming into picture, the peer-to-peer trading is again, that itself is a subject on its own. Maybe I will, if there's an interest, I can talk about that. But I'll tell you that whole, all these new things which is coming into picture, right, which is kind of pushing us hard to go to the next level of SMOC, where actually the whole system works in an integrated way. So maturity-wise, I think in India we have still a lot of way to go, but definitely we are on the right path, I would say.
Thank you for elaborating and giving confidence to all of us here that the 2 lakh crores of funds being earmarked by the Honorable Minister in the budget, especially for smart meters, there is definitely a value for that. And more importantly, that utilities, as Mr. Sharma also elaborated, that utilities are now deriving benefits out of it. Now, we'll come back to other questions shortly, but I would like to next ask a couple of questions to Mr. Sharma as well. This, yes, I'll wait. Yes, you are on mute. So, Mr. Sharma, you are on mute.
Yeah, I'm available. Yeah.
Yes, now you're available. Great. You have been involved with so many implementations and rollout programs. 2 of the programs in smart meter rollout programs stand out I mean, each of them is, of course, individually a chapter in itself. But recently in Andhra Pradesh, I was told that smart meters have been used for agriculture customers. And parallelly, the Delhi Discom, the Tata Power distribution, has also rolled out smart meters. Any specific learnings from them, from the usability and tracing the return on investment perspective, or the policy part of it? The agricultural case would be a case in point of policy, whereas which is probably on your RESCO mode. The Tata Power, I'm told, is purely on a capex mode for smart meters. And in that context, what does an SMOC, what is the role of an SMOC there?
Yeah, right, Mr. Umashankar. So if you see in Andhra, I think they are still to install the meters, although they are in a process of concluding the tender and all for installation of smart meters in agriculture, for agriculture pump sets. So largely the idea behind this would be like to have the benefits of solar operated agricultural pump sets, where the measurement of input energy and whatever they are consuming is possible through smart. The idea behind this, and if you see the value addition it is bringing to the system, so in itself they will be creating the kind of microgrid system in itself in that particular area where such kind of metering system for agricultural pumps that have been used. So this would be a case study in itself, and I think having those data generated from those systems would definitely help in defining the future microgrid concepts on these models. So that would definitely be interesting whenever it happens in Andhra.
Surely, yes.
Apart from that, policy level, right. So at policy level also, if you see, the government policies are more or less, they are inclined towards the renewables, and government is also largely pushing all these policies. I would say they are providing some grant also in some of the cases. So given all these enablers, there would be a huge, I would say, demand for such kind of models. And smart metering or AMI system that forms the basic backbone of this entire value chain. Without this, you cannot get the data from all these measurements. So that forms a backbone, and having installed more than 10 million or 20 million meters in the field in different states, these systems are definitely going to be more mature. And at policy level also, government would be looking to create or maybe facilitate the kind of systems that operates mostly in Germany or in Western countries, Western European countries, basically based on the microgrid concept. So those systems can be prevalent in coming future in India as well, within 2-3 years, when the family of meters be very large. So these things are there definitely. So the policy shift in this area, and a lot of work needs to be done at policy level to govern or to moderate all these issues which may arise out of these requirements. Right.
Okay. Nice. That is nice to hear. We are certainly, as a country and with the electricity grid maturing from a single buyer model to a multi-buyer model, and with massive changes happening, especially the kind of changes happening excite people like us working in the industry, and excite us, those who are working on a low carbon pathways for these utilities. And we hope that the policy matrix also upgrades itself quite significantly soon. The next question I would want to ask you is, are there any examples
also
where we are close?
Just sorry to interrupt, Mr. Umashankar. While we go to this question, if you see for the importance of smart metering operation center, that becomes more relevant considering all these innovations or interruptions which are going to happen in this sector, because you need to have some kind of central monitoring or command to operate such diversified systems in an area which is very huge, and I would say the landscape is very large. So that kind of operation center makes more relevance here.
Absolutely, goes without saying. And this was exactly the next question that I was trying to draw you in. From your experience, are there any states where you are seeing at least some level of planning and preparations for the smart metering operation center, either in state utilities or with private sector utilities?
Yes. So it was done by us only in Bihar and Haryana. We started, the smart metering operation center largely to manage the SLAs of billing and connect, disconnect, and made provisions for which can be, displayed or maybe demonstrated or discussed, deliberated there. And we tried to train, the utility people also how to operate and how to check the feeder-wise details of all these data analytics, temper events, alarm events, and whatever deployments are being happening, and what are their billing and connect, disconnect SLAs. So all these things we did. But I believe maybe a more push, or I would say some more engagement from the DISCOM side particularly is needed to take it forward, because the technology is there, we can enable them as far as the interest level, and whatever business they are doing on day-to-day basis, are they able to find the time to do these things? So this is very important. And the entire business process of utility that need to be revamped, considering all these interventions which are coming in the future. So they cannot remain operated on the same kind of classical business processes wherein they will be dealing all those things manually and would not pay attention to all these new interventions. So these kind of things need to be pushed from the top to bottom, and that particular thing need to happen if we really want to make it a big success.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. I will try to close with two questions to you. Two questions before I go back to Mr. Saha. The first one, of course, is you are best placed here to do a little bit of crystal ball gazing. What do you think is the time frame within which, and this is also an important question for the market to respond, or market to take note of. What do you think is the time frame? 5 years, 10 years, maybe lesser than that, where you see smart meters and smart meters operation center in a majority of utilities? What is the time frame?
Right. So
Yes.
I see by year 2025, we would be able to stabilize and bring the kind of pace which is required for the installation till the time we install maybe around 25 to 35 million meters in these 2-3 years. Post that, I believe that the stabilization, the optimization, or the standardization would already be there in the system, and we would be able to ramp up to the tune of maybe 50 to 70 million a year. So that kind of scenario I see for the future installations for the smart meters.
Very nice, very nice. That's very, very heartening to hear, and also very encouraging to hear. At this point, I will go back to Mr. Saha with some more questions, more on the technology and integration aspects. So two things I would like to start with is, as we are seeing now, the communication protocols still remain a challenge in this country. In that backdrop, what is it that you best recommend, and what are the typical challenges? Because here, a little bit of experience, you have a host of protocols: GSM, CDMA, meshed wireless. Then you have the WAN and HAN, and all of those interacting with each other. How do we deal with that complexity, Mr. Saha? What is the best way to deal with it?
So I think there is definitely complexity, and especially when there are so many different stakeholders involved, right? But what is very important is that if you standardize certain things, for example, based on it is a sector-wise standardization, right? So, for example, when I was discussing that, okay, if it is for the power for the cities, for example, right? So then for a city grid, which is a city-wise grid, as opposed to, let's say, state-wise grid, or as opposed to some. I mean, now today's ecosystem, we are talking about the microgrids, especially in the peer-to-peer system. So this kind of situation, what happens is each of this need to follow a different kind of protocol, because when it comes to a large infrastructure like a city-wide infrastructure, your protocol has to be much more robust and resilient for different types of variation, because your demand pattern, your supply pattern, your type of meters that is installed in the system, your the load generation pattern, everything is different, right? And type of source system that is hooked to the grid, they're all different. The seasonal patterns, it's much variant. Whereas if you look at a microgrid kind of system, it's very different, right? So I think ultimately the decision about what kind of protocol you use, I will not try to recommend a particular protocol, but I would rather say that the selection of the protocol or standard should depend on what kind of system you are talking about, what kind of grid you are talking about, and based on that, you should take the decision.
Okay, so we will now juggle. We've taken a lot of and very intelligent and pointed technology-related answers from you, but we will use your profile also as a business leader to ask you a question, the following question. Now, what does the two things or the one important thing that you would like Indian utilities and their management, which is of course more or fairly, at least in distribution side, fairly a public sector perspective, what would you like them to change to enable people like you to do better business with them on this aspect? What is it in the procurement side of it or in the delivery side of it, with the ultimate objective of doing world-class jobs and having world-class outputs? What is the thing that you would want from the industry or from the public sector?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So, especially in India, if you look at a lot of boards, state boards, they're still public sector maybe, and transmission obviously is public sector, right? So now when it comes to the transmission part of it, I think there is a lot of the governance that is there. I have been working with quite a few other countries, and I can tell you, it's very, very robust and standardized. And the country level transmission system is owned by one operator or two large operators, and a lot of the not only the tariff but also the load pattern, your supply, your generation pattern, they're much well planned. For example, the UK has a 10 years energy statement which actually tells that how many, how they're going to actually kind of replace all their the fossil fuel generation to the renewable generation, right? So there is a very, very planned activity.
They have a net zero plan.
Unfortunately, in India, that is not there. That is posing a huge challenge, right? Now, as we all know that we are moving towards net zero, and that's a mandate. If the public sector point of view, if there is a very, very clear goal given that next 5 years we have to do this much, right? And we have to move from this percent. Of course, India being a lot of coal generation still happening. We are one country, we cannot move away from fossil fuel generation so fast, right? It will be still there. But if we can just create a plan that, okay, over the 5 years, this is how we are moving to, renewable sources, and this many, prosumers, if we can create demand pattern, supply and demand pattern, then I think the planning part will be much, much better. The other thing is that, the whole AT&C laws, which is huge, right? Almost getting to 18 to 20% in the public sector, is something which always we have to reduce, and that is where the smart meter, the whole infrastructure, AMI infrastructure, can play a huge role, right? So these are two things I think I would highlight, that which we expect the public sector should be much more agile and utilize the service integrators like us in a better way.
So thank you. Of course, my question was slightly different about what would excite people like Accenture to do business with the public utilities, which I would presume is...
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think... Yeah,
what would excite?
Yeah, I think of course, India is a different... compared to other countries, we work in a slightly different model. We are also.
So I'll give you context. I'll give you context is, if there are not world-class system integrators, world-class implementers who come to do business with these utilities, you naturally only go with people who are obviously of a second nature or third nature, then the quality of the installation also suffers. That is what all of us have seen. So what is it that would excite
I think
Accenture's,
the two things, I think now I'll be very specific to your question. I probably was slightly, sidetracking that. Sorry about it. I think one is quick decision making, and the second is little more. It's not about cost; it is about return, right? The value add, right? So if the public sector is kind of see the value in what an integrated system like smart metering system can offer, or smart grid can offer, then that realization, if it comes, then obviously the investment would be much more easy, right? So it's not about cost, but it's about value. So they're the two things I would.
Okay. Yes, that's a very good point, which we will possibly take there. Here, I would now go to the moderators and say that, I mean, we can, with these two panelists, esteemed panelists, we can go on and on, but should we take a few questions from the audience, if at all? So I'm to the moderator, to Aayera, we would want to ask if you will take questions from the audience.
Right. Definitely, Mr. Gantayat. We do have a few questions which we can take within the allotted time. One of the question is, what are the key measures to overcome complex objectives for field deployment?
It could be I would like to pass it on to Mr. Sharma, actually. Or if Mr.
Yeah, so I'm happy to take this. So if you see, the field deployment is rightly said, it's really complex, this entire system, and this has to be managed to the extent that achieve the kind of speed which is required for meeting these large-scale rollout. Now, what are the key issues which would enable such kind of large field management or large-scale field rollout? So the foremost thing would be engagement with the consumer, because other things, other speed, other contractor management, all these things can be manageable with proper management, proper program management, proper field management, proper contract management, and proper labor management. But if consumers are really not supporting on the field, and if the local politics is, instigating the resentment, in that case, it is really difficult to scale it up. And one or two such incidents would definitely encourage slowdown in other areas. So these things are really important, and we had our learnings. We deployed very good strategies in dealing all these things. For example, in Bihar, when we started this program, it was kind of I would say erstwhile Naxalite area where we started. So then we engaged the local administration, local politics, everybody we taken on board. We did around 1 month camping there. We tried to in those areas. It was not only one place. So it took us around 1 month time to prepare ground for such kind of installation, and at least the acceptability within the political class and the administration. So that kind of thing we did, and maybe based on the case to case, these strategies need to be deployed in the field also. Apart from that, since it's a labor intensive job, so we need to ensure that they are paid in time, paid properly, so that they continue to work for at least some 1 or 2 years. Otherwise, what happens, maybe some teams are coming for a few days, then they are not getting paid, and then maybe that is not sufficiently paid. So those kind of things happen, and that derail basically the speed, and all the energy goes this kind of local contract management, dealing with all these local agencies. Apart from the quality aspect, which need to be taken care, maybe the tools and means need to be deployed to track and to detect the quality related issue in the field, so that the visits basically controlled. And again, the role of smart metering operation center to help this. So I believe all these can definitely provide us a way forward to basically enable this kind of large scale rollout.
Right. There are quite a few lessons learned, of course, and I think the next phase would be a much more evolved manner of deployments and that. Shall we go to the next questions, or I can also suggest that you put two or three questions in one go, and we will try to close that.
Sure. Actually, the next question is pointed out to you, Mr. Gantayat. So the question is,
Okay.
what are the steps to choose the right management approach for deployment? Should we be creating and owning a single integrated deployment?
The nature of the business as such, I mean, at one point of time, one would have thought that this is a business which is really need not be regulated, okay? And hence there were third party or beyond installation third party service providers for data centers and other services. But with the increases of, it is now obvious even from use cases in the UK that this has got to be very, very regulated. Number one, because it is capital intensive, and this is a business which operates by the regulated return. So it has to have a regulated oversight. Number two, it has got to provide its return on investment. Number three, it has to meet with fair amount of technical standards. Number four, it has to meet data privacy issues, which again was a prime driver why UK kept it very, very regulated. So I'm afraid I would have to say that this cannot be a completely market-driven model. The utilities would still have to be fairly involved. The utilities or one entity which is completely monitored, regulated, and there is a fair amount of oversight should come in. So that brings us to the answer that yes, it is. Private sector can definitely play a very large role here in terms of installation, in terms of day-to-day operations, in terms of analytics, as Mr. Saha was also trying to point out, as Mr. Sharma also pointed out. But I think the procurement would still be done by the utilities. To a large extent, the operations and management has to be some kind of a joint venture or a partnership between the private sector and the public sector. So
right.
I think we should prepare for that, is my direct answer.
All right.
It cannot be it can't be a purely data center based approach.
Sure. So let's move on to our last question, which we're going to take considering the time. This goes out to Mr. Saha. Can you bring some highlights on the critical success factors for the solutions on your experience in other countries?
Good question.
Sure. I think good question. So So one thing is, if I compare, right, I mean, some of the large implementation of, let's say, not smart grid or smart meter operations or all this kind of entail on one particular objective, that there is an investment, long-term investment to reap certain benefit over time. Now, that is driven by several factors. One is, of course, a better distribution management system, better outage management system, better energy management system. All three of this, right? And of course, when I club this together, the benefit ultimately goes to whom? The consumers, right? Because so your tariff ultimately reduces. So in the whole the value chain, the benefit goes to the other parties as well. Now, when I saw some of those large-scale implementation in other countries, what I've seen is this whole planning is done in a very long-term manner, right? And that is how the ROI calculation and everything becomes very transparent, and we know that exactly what benefit you can get at what time. Unfortunately, in a country like India, of course, there are a lot of because of earlier, maybe 10 years back, because of lack of political stability or whatever, we didn't see such long-term planning. But I must say that, today the things are changing. We see a lot of those kind of planning. Now we have a goal, we have a net zero goal, and a lot of other things are happening. So I think it is very important that we also have the same kind of thing. And all the advanced distribution management system, all the prosumer-based integrated system, and the advanced metering system, and also the peer-to-peer trading, which is definitely based on the prosumer-based system. So all this, we need to have an overall planning, and that is how there should be some governing bodies which should take some control on how this will be implemented, and then there should be a very good collaboration between the private and public sector and the system integrators, OEMs, and all the other deployment companies, network service providers, everybody. And ultimately, it is a matter of collaboration, and we should aim to achieve the goal which is set up by our government at the end of the day, right? But ultimately, all the players have to play their role.
Thank you very much. And on that note, if the moderators have anything further to add here, we'd of course be driven by that and guided by that. But thank you both, Mr. Saha, Mr. Sharma, for this excellent session, throwing light upon a variety of subjects related to smart meters and the Smart Meters Operation Center. Let's stay in touch, and please be involved with the industry in guiding this. I can safely tell you that in the stage that we are there in the industry, the acceleration that we are seeing in this subject is immense. It's a new wave which is coming about, and there's a lot of quality expectations as well. I think it sounds good. Over to you, Mr. Syed.
Welcome, Mr. Gantayat. Okay, I think
Mr. Syed. Mr. Syed.
Hi everybody. So I think this
Yes.
ends here, and I would like to thank all our speakers, panelists, and especially Mr. Umashankar for moderating it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Thanks
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, now day comes to an end, and we had amazing responses from each and everybody. I would like to thank the title sponsor, Oracle, and also the other sponsors, Qkilis, Subhashri, Asia Soft, Energio, Rec, VI Business, Siemens, Brilliant, Cytec, Lendis Gear, Tata Power, Schneider Electric, Larsen & Toubro, India Power, Uttar Pradesh Power Corporation Limited, PwC, and also Aayera. Thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of this event. And a special thank to our knowledge partner, PwC. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you.